Salute BookTube. Welcome to my channel, broadcasting live from the heart of the Middle East in the United Arab Emirates. I thought I'd make a video inspired by Women in Translation Month. Now, just to be clear, there were events last month in July and this month in August. In July there was Jane Austen July. This August there was Garb August going around YouTube, BookTube, and there was Women in Translation Month. And unfortunately I wasn't able to participate, or aren't able to participate this year. The main reason for that being, basically I had started this channel in the middle of the year, in May of this year, May 2025. And I had already sort of had my yearly reading plan set up earlier in the year. And part of those reading plans, those reading projects, was to cull my library, to get rid of books, read them, and then get rid of them, because I need to make space, because I have too many books. So because of that, I wasn't able, or I amn't able to participate in some of the events that have come up in the last couple of months on BookTube, unfortunately. But I do hope maybe next year that I'd be able to participate, assuming that this channel is still around next year, and assuming there's no nuclear apocalypse coming up in the world, maybe between USA and Russia, or Iran and Israel, or China, and who knows. But although I amn't able to participate, especially Women in Translation. I had never heard of this event until this year, until just a couple of days before August started. So I had already had my August reading plan set, and I didn't want to add any more books. Again, because I'm trying to get rid of books, and if I participate, I probably have to purchase and acquire books, and that would mean more books, and I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to get rid of books. Anyway, I wasn't able to participate, but I'd like to make a video inspired by Women in Translation Month. I went around my library and tried to find books that have been translated from various languages by women authors, translated into English. And I found a couple, although again, what I mostly read is nonfiction. I do have fiction books, of course, but it's mostly nonfiction. But I did find one a woman author translated into English in my fiction section. I've got a fiction book. I found one nonfiction, and then I've got a third special book very close to me and close to my family, actually. So I'll show you that as well. I think I'll start though with the fiction book translation. It's a novel. It's by Oriana Fallaci, and it's called Inshallah. Inshallah is the Arabic word for God willing. And Oriana Fallaci, I think she's quite well known. She's well known mostly for her right-wing. She's a right-wing Italian author, or she's an Italian author who, I don't know her complete biography. I should have done more preparation before the video started, but definitely later in her life. She's passed away, I believe, but there she is on the back of the cover, Oriana Fallaci. She slowly moved to the right, to the hard right, during the end of her life. She started seeing what she saw as the increasing Islamicization of Europe, especially. I think also witnessing the September 11 attacks and the increasing Islamicization of Europe. And she wrote a couple of books, mostly non-fiction books, about what she sees as the destruction of Europe by Islam. So again, a very right-wing, very controversial author, but this is a novel she wrote called Inshallah, again meaning God willing in Arabic. And this book, originally written by her in Italian, she's an Italian author, as I mentioned, and then translated, it says the translator is James Marcus, but it says, it's a bit strange. I tried to also research this, but it still wasn't clear. It says a translation by Oriana Fallaci from a translation by James Marcus. So I believe it was originally written in Italian. It was translated by James Marcus. And then Oriana Fallaci, I think, moved to the US, or she divided her time in the US. Her English improved, and then she took a stab at translating her own work or editing the translation. That's what I believe is the story of this novel's translation into English. Again, I haven't read this, but it's on my shelf. It would have been a very good nominee to read for Women in Translation Month. Hopefully, I'll read it next year again, assuming I still have this channel. Um, uh, the story is based in the Lebanese Civil War. The Lebanese Civil War occurred between 1975 and 1990, and anybody who knows Lebanon knows it's a very fragmented country. It's about 50% Christian, 50% Muslim. In the 1970s, 80s, the 1970s and 80s, the country just went through a savage, brutal civil war. There was an increase of Muslim Palestinian immigrants or refugees into Lebanon, and that tipped the very fine demographic balance in Lebanon. And that created a very very toxic environment in which a civil war broke out. Very well known to those who are up to date with recent modern Middle Eastern history. Very brutal, very long civil war. I think 15-year civil war. So this story is based in Lebanon during the civil war, and from what I gather, just reading the description, the book's description, it's based in Beirut. There's, I believe, the Christians and Muslims basically were at each other's throats, and this is a story based at that time. Just from my understanding, there's I really don't know too much. Even the description doesn't give too much about characters, etc. But it says, Inshallah is a war novel about destiny, a study of love in all its aspects. It's engrossing, dramatic, funny, and always intensely readable. It says, only Oriana Fallaci, with her unique breadth of experience and masterful command of language and image, could have written such a profound novel. One filled with compassion for men and women, a work that will long stand as a monumental testament to the imperishable human spirit. I want to guess it has something to do with a Muslim character and a Christian character, and the story revolves around that. But I really don't know much more about it other than that. But it's a big book, and it's one that definitely fits into the Women in Translation Month criteria. So one in my library that I'd like to get to hopefully next year. The second book is the one I had mentioned. I have one. Well, maybe I'll talk about the one that's nonfiction, and I'll leave the one that's very close to my heart as the last one. The second one is a work of nonfiction by a female author, written originally in Swedish and translated into English. This is called 1947. When Now Begins is the subtitle, and the author is Elizabeth Asbrink, again, Swedish author, translated by Fiona Graham into English. And this is basically a year, kind of like a diary of the year 1947, all the events. I think that's George Orwell on the cover, if I'm not mistaken. There's a Kalashnikov. Well, I think 1947 was the year the Kalashnikov was invented by the Russians. Basically, this book is about, it goes month by month, almost day by day, of what happened in 1947. Of course, 1947 is the year when the war is put on the back. The Second World War is over, and it's almost like a new dawn. There's the new American, the start of the American century definitely would start here at this point. But this is a global history. It's not just focused on the U.S. or the West. It goes to almost all aspects of the world and just gives an idea of what happened. And a lot of the issues, a lot of what happened in 1947 is still almost with us now. Crumbling probably, but still with us, the issues. If I read a little bit of the description, it says, uh, again, just for a background, it says among the millions in flight across Europe looking for a new home in 1947 is Elizabeth Asbrig's father. So I don't have the background again. I should have done my research. But 1947, there was a lot of refugees in Europe because of the war, the Second World War. It seems the author's father was one of them. So there's a personal aspect, a personal angle to this work of nonfiction. But then it says in 1947, production begins of the Kalashnikov. Christian Dior creates the new look. Simone de Beauvoir writes The Second Sex. The first annual computer bug is discovered. The CIA is set up. A clockmaker's son draws up the plan that remains the goal of jihadists to this day. Not sure what that is about. And a UN committee is given 4 months to find a solution to the problem of Palestine. In 1947, Elizabeth Asbrink chronicles the creation of the modern world as the forces that will go on to govern all our lives during the next 70 years first make themselves known. As the forces that will go on to govern all our lives during the next 70 years make themselves known. There she is, the author. So translated the Swedish to English. You saw some of the issues. The Palestine issue was mentioned. We're still very much living with that. I wasn't sure what the clockmaker's son draws up a plan that remains the goal of jihadists to this day. I have no idea what that's referring to, but the CIA is set up, all kinds of things. Just a new world order. So this book chronicles that, and again, a good nominee for Women in Translation Month, hopefully in 2026 when I read it. The third book is the one that's closest to my heart because it has a very personal aspect. This actually doesn't technically fit into the criteria of Women in Translation. I understood that what I understand for Women in Translation, it needs to be a work in a foreign language translated into English. And the original work has to be by a woman author, a female author. But I just wanted to show this because I don't know if I'll have a better opportunity to show it. This book was originally written in German. It was by a woman, translated into English, and then the copy that I have is translated into Arabic by my grandfather. It was one of his great achievements when he was alive to translate this book. So this is the Arabic version translated by my grandfather. Of course, this is I don't know if anybody can read it, but the translation, the original is in German, but the English translation is Memoirs of an Arabian Princess. And there's the translation with my grandfather's name on it. Maybe the cover can give you a hint, but Memoirs of a Arabian Princess is a story of what she later becomes known as Emily Root. She was the daughter of the Sultan of Oman and Zanzibar, a 19th century Arabian empire that existed from Oman in parts of southern Pakistan and southern Iran into Oman, into Yemen, and along the coast, along the western side of the Indian Ocean, all the way down to Kenya and Zanzibar. The Omani sultans, the Arab Omani sultans, controlled Oman and the coast of Western Indian Ocean, and they also controlled parts of Eastern Africa, specifically Kenya, and especially centered on the island of Zanzibar. Very exotic sounding area, but an area that exists, one you can visit. It was a great maritime empire, and it worked in conjunction with the British Empire and the Pax Britannica that ruled the Indian Ocean, and this is when India was the jewel in the crown of the British Empire. So Emily Root was the daughter of the Sultan of Oman and Zanzibar. Her father passes away, and then there was a civil war between her two brothers for control of the empire. Eventually, they would split the empire between Oman and Zanzibar, and the author was caught in the middle of it. She loses her mother, she loses her father, she loses her mother, she gains an inheritance, but she was trained because she was a princess. She was educated. She was taught to read and write. to read and write. So she was for women at that time. Again, this is set in the 19th century. She was born in 1850. The story of her life in Arabia is between in the 1860s, the 1870s, that sort of period. Again, the height of the British Empire, and the height of their allied Omani Sultanate empire that worked in conjunction with the British Empire. Uh, her name, I think she was born Salama. Um, yeah, her original name was Salama bint Al Sayyid Saeed, but she would later not Anglicanize, but Germanize her name to Emily Ruth. And the reason for that was she was the daughter of the Sultan. She was one of 36 children. And when her parents died and her brother fought in a civil war and for the inheritance of the throne, she inherited the plantation, and she was living in I want to say it's in Oman somewhere. And her neighbor was a German, he was a German, I forget what his occupation was exactly, but he was her next door neighbor. They met, they fall in love, they had an illicit affair. The German gentleman impregnates her. She becomes pregnant with his child. It becomes obvious that she's pregnant with his child. And of course, in a very conservative Islamic society, the idea that a princess would has a child out of wedlock to an infidel, a Christian, was a criminal offense. Could lead to death, really, for adultery and for out of wedlock, and for having a relationship with an infidel or a non-Muslim. So she was because of her pregnancy, she had to escape. She escaped on a British naval steamer, and she ran away to Europe with her German husband, and she began to live in Germany. She was based in Hamburg in Germany, and she lived she lost her husband young, and her husband passed away relatively young, and she was left with I think 3 or 4 children with her German husband, but not with a lot of money. So she was forced to write to make a living, and she wrote her memoirs, and it's a very engrossing story about life in Arabia, in Eastern Africa, in the 19th century. She describes just what the society was like. It's one of the best works of first-hand primary sources of that region of the world at that period of time. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I read it was the first memoir written by an Arabic woman ever. So very historic, very important work of literature, and again translated by my grandfather. So one that's very close to my heart. It technically doesn't meet the criteria of women in translation, because she wrote it in German. It was translated into English, and then this is translated into Arabic. But the English version you can find, I think it's out of again, I forget the actual. I need to do better research for this stuff. I don't remember the actual date of publication of her original memoir, but the translation as well is well within the. It's out of copyright. It's in the public domain, so you can find the story again. It's in English. It's Memoirs of an Arabian Princess, and the author is Emily Rute. She after she ran away from Arabia and escaped, she got baptized. She became a Christian, and she changed her name from Salama to Emily Rute, took her husband's surname and became Emily Rute. So you can find it on Project Gutenberg. Just do a Google search, and you can find the memoirs in English if you're so interested. If you found this interesting. But yeah, so I thought I would do that. A video inspired by women in translation. Again, unfortunately, I'm not participating, but I definitely now have it stored in my head. And then next year again, if the channel is still alive and still going, I definitely have a couple of or three books that I'd really like to read for women in translation. But with that, I'll wrap up the video. I'll wish you all a good day, a good week, and say salute, BookTube.